Easy Sports Talk Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Javon J. Love Adams, and with me is a man who played not only professional baseball but also played in the National Football League for that first Super Bowl bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm talking about none other than author and motivational speaker Ed Easy Smith. What is good, my brother?
Chilling, man. We made it to another Friday. Good sports week. Got a great show coming up tomorrow to wrap things up, man.
So when he says tomorrow, we do a few different things. We wear many hats. So of course we do this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in podcast form. So thank you for joining us. However you joined us, you can also go to easysportstalk.com. That's easysportstalk.com. Every Saturday we have our terrestrial radio show, our national show, which is in 35 states, over 35 states, 90 plus markets. If you're not in one of the 90 plus markets that we're on, you can go to sportsmapradio.com. Sportsmapradio.com. In the upper right hand corner, you'll see a little play icon. You can click on that, or if you want to download the app for your Android or mobile device, you can do that as well. We also have what we do with Believe in the Arizona Cardinals. That's BLEAV in the Arizona Cardinals, and so we do that on Mondays and Thursdays. Latest episode is up, and so get that however you get it. You can also find that on easysportstalk.com or wherever you find your podcast. You can do that as well. So that's my man doing a little bit of crosstalk promotional stuff. So we've got a great show lined up for you today. I want to get your thoughts on this. Pick your brain a little bit because on the run sheet I have Thursday Night Football, and I'm not trying to recap Thursday Night Football because it was pretty whack. It was pretty garbage.
That was a rough game.
But so kind of talk about Thursday Night Football in this way. So if you were a GM, if Ed Smith was wearing his GM hat, we know what Bryce Young is the starting quarterback, rookie quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. He's going through some bumps and bruises right now. Contrast that or compare that to with what CJ Stroud is going through with the Texans. Two different ways of constructing a team if you look at where they put their assets. If you were a GM and you knew you had to draft your what will hopefully be your franchise quarterback, and you draft that quarterback, how do you go about building the rest of that roster to support your quarterback? Are you doing it with veterans? Are you doing it? How are you giving them wide receivers? How is Ed Smith the GM constructing a team? Because comparatively, the Texans, they really invested in getting some of that offensive line help to help to for good, bad, or indifferent, to at least prevent some of the bumps and bruises or some of the to try to shorten the learning curve for CJ Stroud, and it's worked so far. But what would Ed Smith do?
Well, first off, me personally, I would have a 5-year plan.
Okay.
And you know how businesses, say you come in, you either starting your business, taking over an organization. I think too many times people are looking for like immediate success, and that clouds the vision of future success. So would you rather have a flash in the pan, meaning, okay, you go out and get these flashy veterans and stuff like that real quick to maybe make them look good right now? Or do you start building from the ground up, in my opinion, long term, and this might not look as pretty in the beginning, but we're building something, So in saying that, I start with the positions that aren't necessarily the prettiest, but they're the foundational parts, meaning your offensive line. And then on the other side, obviously, you got to build a defensive line as well. But for my quarterback, I'm going to start up front to protect him. And what happens is a lot of times it doesn't, it's not the flashy and it doesn't look pretty because they didn't go get them the shiny weapons and everything. But for me, it's starting with the foundation. Then you start to build outward. You go and get those wide receivers, or you get them, a young running back to, right along with him. Maybe you draft the quarterback this year, and we know you can find running backs in the later rounds these days, but maybe spend a higher the following year, spend a second round pick on a running back, something like that, because nowadays it's so taboo to spend a first round pick on a running back. You can't do that now, whereas that was the focal point years ago. Okay.
Right.
So now I'm starting to build and put weapons around him. And what I'm doing is, Jay, is right off the bat, like I said, I'm actually making a statement too. We're not looking for success in these first years. It's going to look ugly because we're trying to build around him. And I think what happens so many times now, we get these first round quarterbacks, and even think about this, what Carolina did, they gave, in making the trade to jump up to one to get him, They
Yeah.
gave up one of their biggest assets, DJ Moore, wide receiver, right? So you're depleting, you're going and grabbing him, but you're already depleting the weapons around him. And get this, you gave up your first round pick for this year as well. So you don't even have a first round pick to start supplementing around him.
Doesn't Chicago have that pick?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I
Chicago has
heard.
that pick.
I heard somebody say that even though Chicago won, they also improved their draft position.
Yeah, exactly. So they won without winning.
Man.
So they, so like for Carolina, it's like, so you got all this negative, but yet we're expecting this young man to come in, put the franchise on his shoulders, and then the clock is ticking on. We're already starting to grade him, even though he doesn't have squat around him. So,
right.
and the error in my opinion is you start dumping on the head coach. As an owner, you're like, well, I'm expecting this. Well, look the position we're in. Our GM, we couldn't got the asset, but we downgraded all the other positions. We got to get an Adam Thielen and stuff like that. We're supposed to be successful. We don't have an offensive line. We traded away McCaffrey last year, but yet we're supposed to be winning, right?
Yeah.
Instead of making the statement, we're building instead of winning right now. So,
Right.
like I said, me as a GM, that would be my philosophy. And I tell my owner, I said, look, you need to be quiet for at least a year or two. Just, you own the team, shut up and own the team. If you don't like it, obviously you can, that this is the type of relationship that I think good bosses and their higher ups have, though. I think too many times, like, the GM, he's walking on eggshells because he can't say this. Then the coach is walking on eggshells because he can't say this because the GM. But man, sometimes the higher ups or the people in power, that's when they do those retreats and they go to somewhere and they sit in a room and it's like, you're an MF. Yeah, you're an MF. And they hash it all out. And hey, look, I still respect you. You're my boss, but I'm glad we had this talk because we now are all on the same page. And let's go get this MFR done. That type of thing.
True.
So,
True.
but in this situation, like I said, right off the bat, because we drafted the quarterback, we're supposed to go out there and we're supposed to win. No, you're supposed to be building right now. And I think it's an unfair situation how, we're lumping all this on, but because Stroud, as you mentioned, they've surrounded him with some offensive line. He looks pretty good. Well, wow, is he a bust? Is such a bust already? It's like, man, it's we don't let it cook anymore. It's got to be microwave right now.
That's true. That's true. It also makes me think I was an analogy or example with lifting weights. This might surprise you, but I was having an adult beverage at a brewery a few days ago. And so I saw this guy I hadn't seen in a while, owner of another kind of beer shop. And he says, man, your arms are getting big, man. What's going on over there? And I was thinking, if I had stopped after the first time I went and started lifting and trying to focus on just overall better physical and mental health and all that stuff, after the first day, I never get to where somebody says, I see a difference, because I sure had my mom tell me you're looking kind of fat before. And so but it's that type of thing, right? Because you're not seeing the things that are changing little by little if you put the right pieces in place and let them grow, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, we're looking at because what happens, Jay, that the coach is already under fire. Not even 1 year into the job, he's working with inferior, roster. He's got a young quarterback trying to figure it out, and there's already pressure on him. What happens? Okay, next year is going to be more pressure. They don't take the large leaps that that they're supposed to according to the ownership. And then the following year, what do? They fire the coach.
And you got to start all over
again. All over now. We got to, try to develop this. And in the meantime, we still haven't put anything around our quarterback.
Easy Sports Talk Show. He is Ed Smith. I am Javon Adams. I want to get into something a little bit. Came across a story. I think I had heard about it a few months ago, just on the periphery of it. But Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, there is being sued by Ole Miss defensive tackle DeSanto Rollins for $40 million. And essentially, the bare bones of it is that Rollins is saying that because he requested a mental break, a mental kind of a he requested a leave for mental reasons, right? And it wasn't granted to him, and he feels as if he was being pressured in order to play or be kicked off the team and those types of things. And so it kind of gets a little bit, when you look at the story, I have some question marks that raised to me, because I remember being in a management position where I had an employee that was just on the verge of being about to be put on a performance review. I was just about to have to do it, and all of a sudden they went out on medical leave. All of a sudden, I can't do nothing, because that's, once you do that, that's just what it was. And you couldn't do anything. And then when they came back, the clock was reset, and therefore that performance appraisal that was supposed to be coming, now we had to put that to the wayside. So that's the what I want to ask your opinion about, get your thoughts on, is that same player Rollins. He went to meet with Kiffin, and he actually recorded the conversation. He legally recorded the conversation, and some of the language that in this, and you can go to ESPN, folks, to find out. It should still be on either the top, or you go into the college football kind of stories that are going on. Does the language, the language, and the way it seems that Kiffin was treating or speaking to this student, does that surprise you? Because it doesn't surprise me, and it's just one of those things where oftentimes people want the sausage, they just don't want to know how the sausage is made. With the way in which, I'm sure that Kiffin, the way in which he approached it, the harshness, the crassness, is that's what goes on quite a bit. But you still root for your favorite alma mater or your just favorite program for whatever reason. Did that language surprise you?
I don't think it surprised me. I'm actually, we're from an era, Jay, when that's just how people used to talk, when, in authority to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And and I don't necessarily take offense to it. We're at this stage where, like you said, if things aren't going right for me, oh, you know what? I need to take a mental day. I need a mental break. And it's like, I understand when things get tough, now that's the way to turn toward. But at the same time, what's to be said about having some, instead of I need a mental break, having some mental toughness as well? I think this young man was hearing some things that he didn't want to hear. He wasn't performing to a certain degree. They were like, hey, we're going to move. If you're not going to transfer, we're going to move you to another position per se. Then all of a sudden he needed a break, right? But then from what I'm hearing in the story, then all Kiffin was asking, okay, if you need a break, that's cool, but I still need to meet with you. And the young man was like, no show for at least a month or two or whatever it is. And Kiffin does say some things. How, if your boss, I think he used bad terminology. That's more than anything.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be saying if your boss, because, yes, these kids are technically, they're still athletes, student athletes, right? And Kiffin kept saying, if your boss asks you to come to a meeting, you're supposed to come to a meeting. And quite honestly, if he'd have said, if your coach asks you to come to a meeting, then it would take on a whole different, for me. It's like, yeah, your coach asked you to come to a meeting because he wanted to find out how you were doing and assess the situation. And you say, I'm not even showing up. And it's like, wait a minute. Your coach did ask you to come to a meeting so he could see how you're doing. And then maybe we can figure this out. And your reaction is, well, I'm not even going to respond. I'm not even coming in. And then when you finally do come in, you bring the recorder so you can record everything. And then by that point, your coach / boss is very upset, and he's using language that he probably, but here's the thing. You can turn anything into what you want to turn it into. True. And then think about this, Jay. When and no disrespect at all, when the Me Too movement came around, it was like, you better watch everything you say. You said something that was even, if not even derogatory, but hey, ma'am, are you, can you do this? What, Me Too? It's like, wait a minute. Yeah. Everything isn't the Me Too movement. Everything isn't, like, in this situation, necessarily black and white in terms of, you still have some obligation as the offended party to somewhat do your job, or at least be accountable for what you're asking. If you're asking, Coach, I need some mental time. Okay, well, come in and let's talk about it. Let's tell me what you need so we can get it to you. And I'm asking you to come in because I care about you, or at least to, even just to make the claim that I care about you. And you're basically telling me, no, I'm not even coming in. I'm not even showing up. So this young man, and then, bruh, I want to sue him for $40 million.
40 million.
$40 million.
You say, come
but
on,
we can
man.
settle this for a beer.
The thing that gets me,
$20.
the thing that gets me is because just reading that there are, as I've said recently, because both things can be true at the same time. Somebody can be trying to get by. You're about to get demoted. Oh no, man! Something happened. I need some time. I need some time.
Yeah.
Well, what you talking about? You was fine just a second ago. You was fine just a second ago, and now you're not fine. And then while I think you are 100% correct in terms of the mental toughness aspect of things is not emphasized enough. It's if you feel pressured at all, then go ahead and try to regroup. It's figuring out how to navigate through those. There's a book that I'm reading now by Steve Magnus. It's called Do Hard Things. It's not to say that we can't do hard things. It's not to say to always just push through, just barrel through it, but it's to understand how you feel and figure out how you can adjust and get through this situation as opposed to pressing the eject button. That type of approach, because life is hard. If you think sitting there you think football and now you're going to be on the practice squad. Yeah, okay, man. But how do you grow from that? Either you're going to grow from it, or you're going to shrink from it. And so, how do you do that as opposed to all of a sudden trying to say, "Well, look at him. He's white and he got that privilege." Sometimes it's true, but not always true. And you can't always pull that card, because when the card needs to really be pulled and it's real, then it's almost as if we're crying wolf.
Here's the thing, too, Jay. We cannot dismiss an entire generation of how things used to be done. We look back when you and I were kids, our grandfathers and grandmothers did things a certain way because of the generation. There were different laws, and people could, basically go spit on a black person back when they were growing up, and they had certain ways that they did things because that was the times,
Yeah.
And they taught us certain ways. They would take the switch off the back, off this tree in the backyard, and because that's how they were, disciplined generation to generation. And then we got to figure out, maybe there's a better way to do things. Yeah. At the same time, Jay, that doesn't mean the entire way that things were done in a previous generation were totally rotten and totally bad. Right. Say we have to tweak them a little bit, but I'm all for it. And I'm all for every now and then a child needs to be disciplined, maybe a little more than, hey, you go sit in that corner and and you're on a timeout. Timeout. What the hell was a timeout when we were growing up? And I'm not saying at the same time we didn't, you can't do some of the corporal punishment things that were done back in the day. But we get to a point now where everything and like the tough love of years ago, that's all bad now. No, sometimes kids or people in general need to be told no, or you need to toughen up a little bit. It can't go from one extreme to the other, where you need to toughen up a little bit to now, hey, how can I help you today? Because, it looks like you're struggling with everything isn't, sometimes you got to look people in the eye. And I appreciate with you and I, we have a relationship where sometimes like, bro, have you thought about doing this? There's a certain situation you're constantly telling me about with my health and my back, and you're like, bro, have you thought about this? Have you done it? So we tell each other those type of things, and it's not about, like I said, hey, Ed, come here, let me put my arm around you, and is everything okay? But that's the generation we're in now. And for a young man like this, if he was your son, Jay, and he comes home and he's like, well, Dad, they're talking about moving me to a different position. And my first question would be, what? It wouldn't be, what? How dare they? It'd be like, well, how are things going in practice? Are you putting everything in? Or, let's assess the situation. And then I would come to find out, son, it doesn't sound like you've been putting in that work. So, so maybe instead of coming to a total defense and, but this is the generation we're in now. Instead of, hey, maybe you should do XYZ, or maybe you should work harder to the. No, it's, you need a mental break because they're not treating you right. And so I don't like that we go so far to the extreme.
Yeah.
Every,
I agree. I agree. I will say this before we get off of this is that while the tough or honest talk can be, I've used the example. You can tell me I'm fat a couple different ways. You say, "Damn, man, you fat as hell," or you can say, "Hey, man, let's have a talk because it seems like those clothes are fitting you a little bit tighter than they used to, and I think they're the same size they always been. But let's talk about that, right? So you can still have that honest talk. So I think the way in which people in leadership or people in positions of authority speak to, especially when we're talking about sports here, it's a microcosm for other things as well. But because you have that authoritative power, you feel you can talk any way to somebody, and that those are things that I think people need to have that self-assessment and be able to look and say, how can I better communicate? Still communicate the same thing, that I need better results, but how can I communicate in such a way that somebody's not walking out saying, man, they forget everything you've heard that you said because you were throwing F-bombs and all that stuff in there when it wasn't even necessary, man. You could approach me a different way. Why are you coming to me like that? But yeah. So
you're obviously right on that. Yep.
Easy Sports Talk Show Podcast. He's Ed Smith. I'm Javon Adams. So, all right. Leave me with this. We talked about this in Believe in the Arizona Cardinals, and I know we're going to touch on it a little bit more in different ways on Saturday as well for our radio show, our terrestrial radio show. Again, Saturdays from 1 to 3 Eastern on Sports Map Radio. Go to sportsmapradio.com. But I think I've been thinking about this since yesterday, since we ended our pod yesterday. I think Kyler Murray is in a no-win situation. So Kyler Murray is the quarterback for the I say this in air quotes, the franchise quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, coming back from an injury, a knee injury. This is his first time coming back, his first game since 11 months.
Yeah.
And it's this weird situation where new regime, so new GM, new coach, they're not tied to him. It's possible for them to get off of this contract by either possibly releasing him and taking a big hit in terms of salary cap wise, or to maybe trade him depending on, or just stick with him and then ride out with him and try to figure out something along those lines. And so it's weird because the way it's trending is that the Cardinals are going to have a top 5 pick, and plus they have the pick from the Texans. The Texans, maybe that's going to be probably like 10 or top 20 pick, but the way that they're performing so far this season. So we've talked about what do the Cardinals do? Do they play him for? And it's funny because I just heard it on terrestrial radio today on Arizona Sports. They mentioned your theory. I don't know if they listen to us, but if you do, all good. But they mentioned what if they played him for a couple of games and they shut him down, and somebody said, you think they would do that? But and that's your theory as to what they might do. But I think that even if Kyler Murray comes out and he plays better than expected, he can't win. The reason why he can't win is, you ever seen somebody you don't like, somebody who you don't like, or you're around somebody you know that Susan doesn't like Tina, and Tina makes a good point, and Susan, even though it's a great point, even though it's a wonderful point, she says, I still don't like her though. I don't care what happened. That was a good point, but I still don't like her because she took my parking spot, or whatever it is the pettiness of it, right? So I think that even if he plays well, they might say, "Oh man, that was wonderful. He played. He Austin Ford might say he is performing wonderful in this offense. The last 2 or 3 weeks, we even got a victory out of it. We had no turnovers, all that. But that salary is just something that's hanging with me. What are your thoughts, man?
You hit it. I was waiting on you to hit it. I knew you was good. The bottom line, bro, is how do you win in the NFL today? Or at least you start your winning formula is you go get that rookie quarterback on that rookie salary, and then you can supplement around him. If you already have that huge salary in place, it's for a player that you didn't even pay for in the first place. That puts the handcuffs on you because you can't go get all those bells and whistles to surround him with. Why do you think San Francisco was so happy that Brock Purdy blossomed over there? I mean, they were
couldn't wait.
Bro, they were like, holy cow, this kid can actually play. And he's a 7th-round pick. We don't have to pay him anything for 3 or 4 years. Hey, George Kittle, come on over here. Hey, Debo Samuel, come on over here. That's the luxury and the benefit in the NFL with that salary cap to be able to do that. So you got Kyler Murray probably in the building saying and doing everything they want him to say. Everything.
I still don't
Hey,
like that shade of lipstick.
hey, yeah, exactly, bro. And they can't wait. And all they're hoping and praying. Two things. One, he goes out and does not get hurt over these couple to 3 weeks, so they
Yes.
can showcase him and he balls out because other teams will be like, think about Atlanta. Well, you're in the middle of the hunt all the time, currently 4-5. Not going to be stinky enough to get way up there, and you got
Yeah.
Desmond Ritter, and you got Heineke and stuff. All well, how if he goes out there, it's an audition in front of them as well, playing
Okay.
them. So they're just sitting there watching him, right? And he balls out this week, next week, the week after. Then the Cardinals are like, hey, that's it. We see enough. We're gonna get, hey, Kyler, come here. We're gonna sit you down because, hey, you're our franchise guy. We're gonna sit you down because we don't have enough around you with this group right here, but we're gonna build, moving forward. Now he'll hear everything that they want him to hear. He's like, okay, cool, I'll see. Yeah, and for him, it's I did my job, right? Soon we get to the offseason, bro, and especially after they put Toon back out there and we finished the season the way it could be finished, and we're sitting there in the number one spot. And think about this too. Initially, they thought that Houston pick was going to be right there at 1 and 2.
Yeah, I thought I thought that they were going to control this draft, this upcoming next draft. Yeah.
Yeah, but now Houston's balling out. They're 5-4 or whatever they are, 4-4. They're trending toward getting better and better. Now that pick, which is currently at 15 instead of top 2 or 3 like we thought. Now the Cardinals are like, because think about this. If Houston was as bad as we thought they were and their pick was 1, right?
Yeah.
The Cardinals would have been justified in winning a few games because, hey, we already got their number 1 pick. If we win a couple games to appease the fans and we come in at the 3 or 4 pick, hey, we still got that number 1 to mix with our number 3 or 4, But now if you ball out or play it well and you get to like 4 or 5 and that pick that was supposed to be 1 is a 15 through 20, man, so now, like I said, their whole, it's like playing spades, man. And you thought you picked up this, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's a club. That's not a spade. And now it's like, well, I got to figure out. So now their whole game plan is making, hey, maybe we go nil. Let's go nil. So man, I'm telling you right now, Kurt Murray is in between rock and hard place. He's got to go out there and he's got to show them and he can play. But at the same time, they don't necessarily want to see him ball. To a certain degree, they want him to go out there and do just enough, wet the lips and the whistle of these other teams, so they can then figure out what they're going to do with him. So yes, and then for Murray, you're going out there with this group. I mean, this is bad. No offensive line to protect you, no weapons to throw to on the outside. He's going to be running for his life. So this is not, a good situation for him at all. And the organization, fingers crossed, man. They are just like holding your breath underwater, man. How long can you do it? Some point you got to come up.
Easy Sports Talk Show podcast. That is Ed Smith. I'm Javon Adams. See, I finally had a theory that Ed got on board with a little bit. He was just waiting. If you're watching on YouTube, you saw Ed's face. He was waiting. Can you go? I'm preaching the sermon. He said, "You got me if you say the one thing, and then I give you my amen. I give you my amen." But we do this thing 3 times a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Make sure you tell a friend about what we have going on, whether you're on YouTube or you go to easysportstalk.com or however you got to us. We do appreciate it. Share, tell a friend about what we have. And then also believe in the Arizona Cardinals. That's BLEAV in the Arizona Cardinals. That's every Monday and Thursday. And you can go to believe.com or search where you can get it on the SiriusXM app as well, wherever you find your podcast, also at easysportstalk.com. And then lastly, we have our terrestrial radio show, our national show, every Saturday from 1 to 3 Eastern on Sports Map Radio. So tell a friend about that. You can go to sportsmapradio.com if you're not in one of the 98 markets that we're in, and you can go in the upper right-hand corner, click on the play icon, or you can download the app for your Android or mobile device. And as we always like to say around this,
shout out to my son up in Utah, Eddie. He listens to us all the time, and he'll always come back and gives me feedback on some of the things we say, and he'll be rooting, he'll be clapping for you this time, bro. He always claps for you. He's like, yeah.
I finally did it. I finally did it. And that's how we do it. So until next time, you can